All right, hey guys, today we're working on a case study. I've got a federal couple accepted job opportunities overseas, going to take them on a 3-year tour to Europe. They're excited, but they've got some questions around their financial plan, what this means to their finances. Particularly, there's going to be a lump sum of cash coming into the plan. They're going to sell the family home, so they want to know what to do with that. They've got some goals attached to it, as well as monthly cash flow is going to be changing. There's going to be a significant amount of extra cash flow coming into the plan based on lower expenses, additional compensation. So we're going to take a look at that as well. And then finally, we're going to take a look at what all this means. Does it push them closer to their goals, further away? What does this opportunity mean for them? All right, so I love telling these stories. I think there's so much value here, so many things that we can take and apply to our own situations. And if you're working on a question, something like this, some scenario like this, we'd love to hear from you. Love to hear what you're working on. We can be a resource for you. We answer questions just like this every day for our clients. So would love to hear about what you're working on. All right, first things first. These sort of scenarios generally just don't come out of thin air. If you're thinking about doing something different, really visualizing it and starting to let the ideas marinate is the first step, right? And that's what happened here. This couple, 3-4 years ago, they decided they wanted to do something different and they started working through different scenarios, looking for opportunities. None of them were quite right at the time. And then eventually this came up and they applied for the jobs, were fortunate enough to get them, and the adventure starts. But it was a process. They planted seeds, kind of let ideas marinate, and we got to where we are today. So don't discount the idea that you could do something like this too, if it's something that you find interesting. Now for them, I'll give you a little more backstory. So 49, 48 years old, husband and wife, their kids are just moving through college. So they pretty much are empty nesters at this point. And so it's a perfect opportunity to do something like this. And they had this idea a few years ago. They wanted to sell the family home, buy a condo closer to the office, and buy a mountain home that they could use on the weekends, as well as when they have more flexible work opportunities. So great idea, right? And so the timing just wasn't right, but now it's going to be right when they come back in 3 years. And that's still part of the plan. When they come back, they're selling the house now. When they come back, they want to buy these 2 properties. All right. So that's one of the big goals attached to the equity that's coming out of the house. Some of the other goals are simply paying off some debt that's out there, as well as funding savings and potentially funding a long-term investment account, taxable investment account. I love the idea of the 2 properties, and that was one of the bigger things that we had to work through in terms of the numbers. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have going on here. I put together a worksheet for us to review. And so some of the numbers based on appreciation and paying down their mortgage over time, they've got a good amount of equity that's going to be coming out of the house. So we're thinking we can sell for 1.25 after we satisfy fees and expenses, thinking around 722,000 or so is what's going to be left to work with. And some of those goals that I mentioned, so there's a TSP loan associated with some home improvement projects. We want to pay that off, right? Okay, we want to satisfy that loan, get the TSP working back how it should be. There's student loans that the kids both have. They're committed to paying off, which I love as well. The rates on those are not very good. It's around 6.8%. So we do want to go ahead and pay those off with some of the proceeds from this. There's a wedding in the near future. And so they're committed to a loving family, committed to helping the kids. It's about $40,000. It's gonna be a really short time frame. So it's gonna be hard to finance that with cash flow. Something we're gonna take a look at, but for now, I think we're just gonna be setting aside, some savings to account for that. Long-term savings gonna top off with about $25,000. And then the down payment, this was a little tricky to come up with, but the numbers we're working on right now, about $350,000 going towards down payments on 2 properties. And we'll take a look at those numbers in just a second. They also wanted to fund to buy cars when they come back with cash. More than $100,000 is kind of the thought. I'm not really on board with that. I want to look at the cost of capital, the auto market when they come back. We'll kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. I hate putting money into a depreciating asset like that. See what the financing options are. So those are the goals attached. And really, it's pretty straightforward. I think we wipe out the majority of this stuff and set money aside in some conservative positions for the down payment as well as the longer term savings. And we got to the $350,000. Originally, it could have been more than that, and it still could be. But here's the thinking behind it. So 2 properties. Wanted to stay close to kind of the same purchase price between the 2 as what they're giving up now, as well as the same monthly payment. The monthly payment's going to be tough because the interest rate is so low on their current loan. It's like under 3%. When we come back, we're going to have to account for a higher interest rate. And so the numbers we're playing with right now are more along the lines of the 30-year average, the historical average of the 30-year fixed mortgage. And that 30-year number is probably 5.6%. So we're going to use a 5.75% in our calculations on a 30-year and on a 15-year note, run the numbers. So I don't think we're going to get close to the principal and interest payment that they have now, which is around $3,000. But one thing that's helpful to look at is how much the projected monthly payment will be of their gross income. So what's their debt to income ratio going to be? And we always want to keep this less than 25%. That's our goal. Now, what we're projecting here is just principal and interest. It's not including maintenance, taxes, insurance, some other costs that will be associated, but we'll get a good idea of what the principal and interest payment would be. So one other quick thing is to just kind of clear up on the properties. The condo purchase, the one closer to the office, is going to be a shorter term thing. It's going to be transitional based on, their federal career wrapping up 5 to 10 years after they move back from this tour. Okay, so we're going to put a lower down payment there, about 20% of a planned $500,000 purchase. So $100,000 flowing there. And then on the mountain property, we do want to increase that down payment amount because we want to lower the overall loan to value ratio. There's a lot of reasons to do that. So we're going to put $250,000 down. It's going to help with the payment. It's going to increase the equity and stability there. So that's how we came up with the total amount of $350,000 down between the two, a $1.1 million purchase. That gives us a financed amount, a total financed amount of $750,000. That's where we come up with these numbers. So $750,000 at 5.75 for 30 years gives us a principal and interest payment, $4,376. On a 15-year, it's much higher, $6,228 would be the payment. Now, the debt to income ratio on both of those, pre-retirement, they're maxed out GS15s. Very, very good, right? So under 15% on the 30-year. Of course, it's a 30-year note. And then under 20% on the 15-year. So that's workable. Now, the thing is, they're going to work for another 5 to 10 years. Do you really want a 30-year fixed mortgage? Maybe. I mean, you can always pay it down early. There's nothing that's going to handcuff you there. But what we want to look at is what their post-retirement income is going to be. And so I've run the numbers. I'm going to share them with you here in just a little bit, but the percentages change, and that's what we're looking at right here. So the percentages do go up. So now it's 17.5% on the 30-year, your debt to income. And then even on the 15-year, it's still under that 25% mark. So just under it, okay? So those are some of the numbers that we're looking at there. So again, lots of flexibility built in here. This is a starting point. We're going to give ourselves even more flexibility with how we're going to use some of that investment money and some of that cash flow that comes in. So that's part of the plan as well. All right, so what's next? We're kind of talking two things here. So that was really how the lump sum money is going to play out, and it's going to work to their advantage. It's going to have an opportunity to finance 2 properties as well as pay off a bunch of debt and fund some other goals that are really important to them in terms of family. How does the cash flow portion look? And so that kind of runs hand in hand with the mortgage discussion we were having. So here's some additional notes. And really what we were talking about here on the top was the housing piece of it. The cash flow looks like this. So over the next 3 years, the increased cash flow is going to be around $8,200 a month. Okay. And that is on top of actually maxing out their TSP accounts. So really great opportunity. Now that's going to change in 3 years when they come back and we pick up a mortgage payment that's going to be somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000, $4,000 and $6,500 a month. So some of this is going to go away. So what we're projecting here is just using the $8,200 for the next 3 years. What does that mean to their longer term plan? It's actually a wonderful opportunity, right? Because you're talking close to $100,000 a year flowing into investments. Okay, so if we look at that and we're able to invest it at 8% and keep it invested, not just for the 3 years that they're contributing, but until retirement or even beyond that, we'll just take the 10-year number as an arbitrary point in the future. That comes out to be about $908,000. So a significant chunk of money that we're able to create based on this cash flow, even if it does change within 3 years. And hopefully it won't, there'll still be money flowing into the taxable investment account and towards other financial goals. Now, we mentioned $220,000 would also be flowing into an investment account as a lump sum. What does that mean in 10 years? So $220,000, if we invested at 8% in 10 years, that grows to $474,000 we can see here. So between the two, the opportunity comes out to be about $1.4 million in added assets over the next 10 years. So, that's a big chunk of change to flow into your plan. It's going to change what you can do in terms of your retirement lifestyle, as well as legacy goals, helping family members, all kinds of stuff associated with that. So finally, the last part of this, we want to take a look at the numbers. What do the numbers look like in the future? I mentioned they're 49, 48 years old. They think they might need around $15,000 in retirement 10 years from now, right? If they're able to go out in 2034, things look good for them there, right? So if you project $15,000 at a 3% inflation cost of living adjustment, that comes out to be $20,158. It inflates to $241,904 a year. Okay, so that's kind of what they would need to cover their expenses. And then, the income sources here, we see really 3 things, right? First, pension, retirement accounts, that investment account that we just funded, we talked about on the other page. It's going to be in addition to this, and then Social Security when that kicks in. somewhere between 62 and 70, depending on what they want to do with that benefit. But the first pension looks like this. The earliest age they can go out together, actually, so that one doesn't have to continue working beyond the other. We're going to see that's 2034, and the first pension projections look like this: combined $168,702. Okay, if they wait till 62, I ran the numbers. There's some increases over here, but do you really want to wait to 62? That's an additional 3 and 4 years for that additional multiplier and benefit to accumulate. So considerations. Retirement accounts, right now they're sitting at 1.6 million in their TSP, planning on continuing to max both of those out over the next 10 years. So they'll have catch-up provisions kick in at age 50. If we run the numbers on that for the next 10 years at 8%, the 1.6 plus contributions turns into 4.6 million. So another huge chunk of change. Hypothetically saying you take 4%, maybe you take more, I don't know. It just depends. Maybe you take less depending on what your expenses are. That comes out to be $184,000. So just kind of ballpark what that might mean, a big chunk of change coming into the plan. So that would, of course, change the debt to income ratio as well, depending how much money we take out of the TSP on a consistent basis. Now, of course, the one thing that we always point out here, these are straight line projections on the TSP. So want to use, caution when looking at straight line projections, because life investment returns generally don't run in a straight line. So always keep that in mind when you're working on your own plan. So really one of the last decision points that we're going to have to work through, and a lot of things are pretty fluid here, as they always are in financial planning, depending on what we want to do with the properties, the purchase price, how much we want to finance. Okay, so tax allocation is going to become a big deal for them in the future. They've got a large chunk, their TSPs are basically all pre-tax. They're in the 24% tax bracket now, so it's kind of that gray area. They like the tax deductions, they like the pre-tax contributions, but it would serve them well to start directing money towards the Roth if they can stomach giving up that tax deduction now. This is gonna become a problem in the future, and we'll have to look at Roth conversion strategies, something like that. But the monthly cash flow that's flowing into the plan, the $8,000 a month, we can't really get that into a tax advantaged account, if we're already maxing out our TSP. So our options are pretty limited. But the taxable account does have its own favorable rates in terms of capital gains and dividends, and it's you're paying as you go, right? So it's not adding to that tax bomb potential. So that's going to be one consideration that we're going to have to continue to work through as well. All right, so overall, this is an awesome opportunity. This is a really cool case. I'm really excited for them. As you can see, the lump sum helps them to pay off some of the debt that's outstanding, as well as satisfy those goals to the kids and family members, which I think is a wonderful thing. So it also gives them the opportunity to jumpstart a taxable investment account, as well as finance those 2 properties that we're thinking about in the future. And then the monthly cash flow offers the opportunity to really create another nice chunk of money, a nice pool of money that's going to supplement lifestyle in the future, whether it's retirement lifestyle, legacy, whatever they want to do with it. So all in all, this is a great opportunity for them to go ahead and take the adventure as it comes, and also put themselves in a better financial position. So as I mentioned before, if you're thinking about doing something different, start exploring now, looking for those opportunities, make it more tangible, and you'd be surprised what might come your way. Hope you found some value here. If you share it with a friend or a colleague, and of course you can give us a like and subscribe. And until next time.